All right. Hello, welcome everyone. This is Active InferAnt stream number 16.1. It's December 2nd, 2025. I'm going to start the stream with a GitHub push. Everything is on the GitHub repo doxology template. We will reload that and we're live. Looking forward to your comments and any ideas or questions in the chat. Here is where we are going today. We are going to a test-driven development, configurable, end-to-end test suite operation, data analysis and visualization, validation steps, and PDF rendering, including with citations and clickable links and equations formatted as a scientific PDF, as well as a variety of other fun formats, including HTML files that can be opened for the web and slides for conversion to slides. That's the PDF rendering functionality. There's a LLM review output section that provides review and improvements and suggestions for the manuscript in English. There's a translation output using LLMs locally to translate. Then there are literature database search and through APIs and PDF download and local LLM summarization, which we're going to use. So without getting too far ahead of ourselves, let's go to the agenda. Okay, the title of the stream is Actionable Template-Driven Research, which is going to get at the core of what this template repo is. Operational Meta-Scientific Arts and Crafts, which I guess is like the genre. The stream is live on YouTube, on the Active Inference Institute channel. This will be a live stream interactive walkthrough, and we can also do some improvements and some other random stuff, see where it goes. Greetings, Upcycle. Good to see you. Tools. I'm using a Mac computer. Cursor 2.146 with mostly the auto and the recently released, available at a discount, Opus 4.5. And locally, Ollama will be using Llama 3 and Quen type models. Okay, here in this, we can look at this on GitHub. There's a few big themes that are going to come up, and I'm sure many more. This is just a first step. There's going to be a big focus on end-to-end configurability and ease of reproducibility. There's going to be the usage of a lot of thin orchestrators and articulated reference, which means that the modular, flexible methods are underlying in a kind of single composable toolkit set of affordances, and orchestration happens separated from those tools, which gives good ability to express different workflows and swap out different tool implementations. There's going to be a 2-layer model to this repo overall, which I might as well describe here. The project folder is self-contained and is intended to be at the project level, like the specific research paper that's going to get generated. And this is going to be a test-driven package alongside a manuscript expressed in these modular markdown files, which are undergoing this internal coherence test suite, which could be 0 tests, or you could use it extensively, with the SRC code orchestrated through tests and scripts, which in the context of a certain formatting for the manuscripts in Markdown, now pop out of the project, is going to be utilized by the template repo using the infrastructure modules and the scripts in the infrastructure, and ultimately this top level run.sh at the top level which is going to pop up this main menu where we can run the tests, we could render the manuscript, we could run the scientific review. We'll just start that one up now. So here we already, in this, I have these tabs. Here is one process going with the local LLM, summarizing papers that were downloaded from a literature search. We'll look at that step. Here is the output of the translation into Chinese, Hindi, Russian. Here's the manuscript rendering, which includes the full test suite within the project level of the SRC here with respect to these tests within the project, and then the infrastructure level tests, which are in the top level test folder. So double test suite, then running the scientific analysis, which is the SRC orchestration within the project. So here it's like a template paper about optimization methods. Then section by section, going through the manuscript markdowns. That was the analysis and scientific figure generation. Then there's discovery of manuscript sections. And for each manuscript section, they're generated into the PDF, the HTML, any other formats. Then the PDFs are concatenated to make project combined. There's validation of the subtypes. The subtypes are copied from output within project, which is intended to be a kind of monophyletic, standalone kind of briefcase. And then it gets copied for convenience to the top level, so we can always have the most recent version of the top level, just as a convenience. After copying those outputs, there's the local LLM scientific review. And then here is the warm-up, executive summary. And this is going to, that is here, LLM, output, project, output, LLM, combined review, improvement suggestions, beautiful hallucinations and all. So here is what that looks like when it's running. This is the English scientific review of the current manuscript. This one is on the translation step. We already have them, so I'll just cancel it. And here's the summarization. So this is kind of the other branch. So you can, for this repo, you can use them together, as I hope we will do so in the coming minutes. Or you could just use the keyword search and PDF download and summarization pipeline, which looks like this. We'll make lit search. /run. Literature search and PDF download 7. This is going to search archive and semantic scholar for papers, download PDFs, add them to the BibTeX library, generate AI summary, and you can set how many parallel workers. We're going to do 30 papers per keyword. Search keywords, epistemic foraging. Resume previous run? No. Start a fresh run. So this is going to search archive for epistemic foraging. Found 30 results, 58 deduplicated from Semantic Scholar and Archive. The literature output is saved into a top-level folder called literature. The references.bib is kind of overleaf LaTeX style bibliography. And the PDFs are downloaded into PDFs folder. Then the summaries are made by the same name in the summaries folder. And we're going to use that to very fun effect, I believe. And that's kind of chugging away here. So, especially with a possibly slightly better naming scheme or bibliographic reference system, there could be calculation, as I know some teams at the Institute and other teams have done, to make sort of all of archive scale summarization or work with embeddings, other methods. But the overall spirit here is this sort of visible craft, arts and craft, script style that it sits in a nice space in morphospace for programs. We will use Cursor as a pseudo RAG to work with these summaries as context to write research-based papers that are going to transform the package inside of project and a manuscript, and then we're going to bounce those off each other and get grounded, interpretable, step-by-step. Could be entirely manual or could be entirely AI orchestrated with some end-to-end literature-based augmented research, multi-channel repo versioning. So, let's go to some of the more themes. Two-layer science is the top level of the repo with the infrastructure, which is kind of like the oven mitts. And then there's project, which is like the dish coming out of the oven. So the two-layer science is the meta science tools for operations in the repo of template. And then project could be plain text markdown for a purely prose philosophy paper. Or there could be a simple coin flip and the insertion of the outputs of the coin flip or a visualization based upon data for a philosophy paper. Or it could be extremely technical, could modularly compose all these kinds of reference across within sections, papers, all these different kinds of things by knowing that we're going to use that state space or want to have those kinds of literature expression in making a project pipeline that could be more software with sort of sloughing off documentation, or it could be more manual prose and AI never entered into it. Modular minds within and across, nested blankets, what kinds of compositionality for agent tools. We can add a MCP or other tool layer. There's already a CLI. Meta science, open science, philosophy, second order science, all these kinds of questions about tool building. IDEs wide open, as opposed to the alternative, using even Cursor, other kilocode, other code, augmented approaches, and just more generally tools to think with and sense making and personal collective knowledge management, how that's related to file versioning. This idea that is big in the DSci and meta science spaces with version controlling and some of the work with claims graphs and different ways to parse and connect some of the entity reference and semantics and different granularities of analyzing and integrating research papers. Sudo make me a manuscript, basically role-based access, including total root access to research projects for end-to-end configurable reproducibility, including the PDF rendering exactly a certain way, and blurring the line using formal allo reference as well as cursor shared contextualization, blurring the line with command code, knowledge base, all these different kinds of synthetic intelligence semantics, which is sort of like the pragmatics and semantics within the augmented IDE, which can run code as well as use these softer language affordances. A lot of ways to use the modularity of the infrastructure level and the project level to make packages that are conceivably simpler, as well as possibly just different or more modular by adding a module to either the infrastructure level or within the project level, which we can do during this stream. And exploring, I think, a very creative tension with industrialization and regularization, normalization, automation. There's going to be some areas to explore about preparing one's workspace and operations in the niche, and sort of to carve one spoon with a knife out of wood. It might be a different startup time or tool need rather than a wooden spoon or a metal spoon factory. But these are all just these different morphologies, different energy gradients, information gradients of production. And so what that looks like in a sort of cognitive, semantic information, niche modification, multi-agentic setting. The potter's wheel, centering projects before shaping them and making small changes that radiate out through natural forces and these defined flows. The apprentice's advantage, learning by structured doing, so supporting a niche where a side folder like journal or field notes, other modular systems can be brought in and tested in a relatively standalone or in a very deeply integrated way. So with these kinds of niche artifacts as the trace, but also with their own activity and informativeness, intra-activity in cases, as with others we encounter in the niche. So holding up and open that whole continuum from data-like to active-like, that kind of polycomputing relational feature. All right, let's go to the agenda. And meanwhile, if you're watching live, make a suggestion. I will wait to a first suggestion before including that in the research paper that we will search for and write and update the PDF, maybe even go all the way to Zenodo at the end of the stream with a literature based. So if somebody has a specific question or topic to research, write it, and I'll wait at least a few minutes for that. All right. The way to run this system is to open a terminal in the base layer of the repo. /run.sh. This is a single entry point. There's going to be an exit option and 8 different kind of partially overlapping functionalities. There's run the infrastructure tests, which is going to be, let's start with that one in this window. So this is just making sure that all of the modular functionality of the template repo, independent of the project, whether it's a prose journal, poetry book, or whether it's a simulation and data download and integration, that is the 2-layer model. The infrastructure is like the crust, and the project is like the topping of this scientific pizza or analogous. So here it's about to finish. There are 1,654 infrastructure tests. So a huge number of many very simple tests. And it has about 80% coverage of the code base of the infrastructure modules, which are the build system, which is the PDF composition and validation, the core methods of logging and interfacing, documentation and relationships between document parts, the literature search methods for download, the LLM methods, which here are only OLAMA local calls, possibly a vestigial file here, the publishing methods, which can be greatly extended with nanopubs, other kinds of on-chain, off-chain publishing, rendering, some of the manuscript transformation tools that help go from the markdown with the defined style guide into the properly linked reference and checking for the equations, figures, sections, citations, etc. Possible scientific developer functionalities and validation methods that are called on by other packages. Every folder where it makes sense, I try to have a both README, a human readable specific accounting of file function structure, etc., as well as an agents.md, which can describe more similar, overlapping, more technical, sometimes prioritized information for augmented coding, whether using kind of like a Codex, Claude Code, Factory AI, terminal coding assistant, or headless version, or using Cursor, like, which is doing something similar under the hood. So that's the infrastructure test function. That was option 1. Option 2 is run project tests. So here, these are within project. This is 320 tests, which is still a vast relative number, but just as a starting point for modifying the project package. So this is using these SRC functions, no modules, as not to overly bias what the format of the SRC is, just kind of a flat list of functionalities, that these tests within the project, again, flat, covering those file names, test. And then that is the functions that are going to be used within the package, for example, to generate simulation plots. So to simulate, visualize, check data in general. And that's what we're going to modify based upon semantics of literature grounded research summaries. So that was option 2. Does this kind of, hey, that's just how we've always done it, with the high test coverage within the package and at the infrastructure level. Okay. Also at the top level of the repo is docs, which is documentation about the repo and the 2-layer system, and just a bunch of modular footholds, searchable, indexable, useful epistemic, signposting information, a lot of modularity, ways to improve that. So that is that was the second option from run.sh, which was running the test suite for the project. 3 is the rendering of the whole PDF manuscript. Let's just do that one. So it discovers the project, runs the generation of the simulation and the visualization by running an orchestrated order of scripts within the project folder, so that the project folder, again, is kind of like this complete briefcase, unfoldable, source code, orchestratable DNA. Then each of these sections in the project manuscripts folder are going to get generated slides. I will open up a I'm going to open up a window and just so we can look at the dashboard. 1 second. Okay. Here's the rendering the manuscript finished. So it renders into output and then it gets copied into the top level output folder. Here's the raw data from the simulation. Here are just the figures from the analysis generated by the scripts. Here are the LLM, local LLM based, that's looking now at option 5, the LLM scientific review, in this case in English. Combined review, let's look at these on GitHub. So project output LLM, project output. Here's combined review. So for context, the paper that we are reviewing is a sort of appropriately referential example default project title, subtitle example by project author on today's date. And it is a red letter, absolutely black, white, and red all over document that's composed to a cited, linked, interactive format, but also these other formats for web. So let's see if this will open in Brave. HTML for website use. The slides are saved, so probably some manuscript formatting is going to look well structured or not in if you write short paragraphs or long paragraphs. It might look good in the slides, but not in the HTML. Maybe some of the formatting's a little off. Something like that. Webs, slides, simulation data, the validated, config, parameter injected reporting, plain text, composable reports, the PDF, LaTeX basis, bibliography file, and final linked PDF. So that's, and then the translation maybe only goes to top level. Not sure where those went, but there, we'll run the translation. We'll do so. Step 6. Okay. So now in this, rename that terminal to translation. Here we have summarization happening. So with this step, okay, kill that one. Right. So that's some of the hello Gabriel export. That's some of the manuscript rendering, project running, project level deliverables within the context of you could just be doing that with all manual writing. Doesn't need any kind of literature. You could just delete the bibliography or have a null bibliography. So now, let's look at these steps 7 and 8 or literature search, PDF download. So here, I'll see a few more minutes if anyone has a specific topic that they want to suggest for which topic to research, especially if there's archive papers on it. And then we will make a branch of the template repo and go end to end on making that well-formatted PDF with literature grounding. But here's the literature search PDF download component. We'll just do 10 papers per keyword. Expected free energy, interoception, electromagnetic. We don't want to resume the existing run. Just picked a few keywords. Could be improvements to the API call literature database methods. So just 10 results from archive. I don't think I entered any email or API for Semantic Scholar, so hence probably why the rate limit is getting hit there. So it's going to search these 3 keywords separately, and maybe just doing archive for certain topics would be a little faster. Let's keep watching. There's about 600 PDFs that I've already downloaded that are in git ignore as a folder, so they don't go to the GitHub. And then if the PDF of that exact composed name, author, year, word, if it's not found, it tries to download it. For some of the papers, the current download methods work, but not for all. So, but for many, let's see. 14 were already downloaded for those topics. 20 were newly downloaded, 6 failed. So after downloading the terms, it tries to process those PDFs. So let's look at KOW 2023. So this is probably something from the epistemic foraging or something. We'll see. So, okay. Top infrastructure level literature PDF. KOU W 2023 information seeking. Okay. So this is by voter Cow of Institute Discord fame. Information seeking polynomial narcs model predictive control through expected free energy minimization. So this is a archive paper from about 2 years ago that right now with the Llama 3 gradient language model via OLlama is getting summarized. So that's going to go into, we'll pin this one. That is going to output in the coming seconds to minutes a summarization in the summaries with the same file name. So let's just look at the PDF, see what it's about, see what the what the list brought in. We'll just read the abstract for epistemic value. We propose an adaptive model predictive controller that balances driving the system to a goal state and seeking system observations that are informative with respect to the parameters of a non-linear autoregressive exogenous model. The controller's objective function is derived from an expected free energy functional and contains information theoretic terms expressing uncertainty over model parameters and output predictions. Experiments illustrate how parameter uncertainty affects the control objective and evaluate the proposed controller for the pendulum swing up task. And that's getting summarized here. Greetings, paradoxical AP. So this here's the translation outputs. That is in template project output LLM translation. Maybe not. Okay, c'est la vie. Okay, so now here, 456 word summary of this cow paper was written. That's going to be in literature, summaries, cow 2023. That was previously not there. So this is just using the Olama local LLM to summarize the paper that we just read. Okay. So those are the two branches of functionality that are at the infrastructure level that enable different kinds of project level work. So let's kill the processes and then take the project in a specific applied direction. So check in here. I'm going to make a new branch that's going to use the tools in their functioning state for main. And this is going to be just live branch. So, if someone has a research question or topic that they want to write in the live chat, then I will prioritize that just to give a fun injection of randomness. But what's going to happen, and we can start writing out the prompt here already, is we are going to transform using cursor as a planner and IDE, transform the project folder's source code, manuscript, and summarization into a specific research project, while we use the literature search methods to search archive for research works that get summarized on that topic. Then we're going to use the summarization of some key archive works in our context window to update the manuscript and cite those archive papers properly, so that we're going to go using cursor within this context of end-to-end reproducible, configurable PDFs. We're going to go from this template placeholder PDF into a research-based, document-based, open source software package, unit-driven development, improvable modular system with actual reference to citations that are of the topic that someone can suggest. But we'll start the prompt and just wait like 1 more minute if anyone does a prompt. Otherwise, I'll make some random question. Okay. For the following topics, plan to make any and all changes to only the project. Okay. All right. Gabriel Export wrote something about containment theory. Okay, I can kind of guess what it is, but I don't know what it is. So, we will do actionable theory, literature, meta-analysis, and some question. Add more details if you want about containment theory. But first, I'm going to start the literature review for containment theory. So run.sh, step 7, literature search, PDF download. We're going to do 50 papers, search keywords. Okay, containment theory, comma, and Gabriel wrote alternative to set theory. Set theory. All right. All right. So this is going to, you can imagine letting this run overnight. So we'll just look at, this is actually going pretty fast. So that is going to download the PDFs for the search that we just made for 157 citations and add them to our bibliography. So that's happening. Now we're going to transform the project folder to be a project about containment theory and being an alternative and implications to set theory. We are completely transforming the project folder within the constraints and niche of template / infrastructure methods as documented and tested. We are transforming completely and only the project, configuration, source, testing, documentation, methods, rules, etc. to be about. I'm writing down what Gabriel Export has written in the chat. Containment theory as alternative to set theory, also known as boundary logic or iconic mathematics, comprehensive bibliographic based. This is where we point to the summaries, because Cursor can access across these folders for real summaries of ref, specific comprehensive literature review sections, technical, analytical, and Gestalt overview, unified notations and tables, visualizations, methods, tests. What are the basis, implication, specific, testable, hypotheses, and explanations comprehensively? Okay. Plan to transform all. This is just speculative and fun, but these can be tuned as well. Transform all sections as and all downstream. This could be just entered in to a single run method. Okay. Here, using Opus 4.5, which within Cursor is available at Sonnet 4.5 cost during the first 2 weeks, which I guess we're still in. I should have enough usage to use Opus a bunch of times during the remainder of this stream. What's happening now, as we are on now the live branch. So this is now main is what I forked to make the branch that we're now on. So main is the one that you just check into, and then this is now where we're vectoring off from. We're adding in URLs. We're adding in, doing literature search to get new PDFs and summaries. What formulation of containment theory? Both. How should we handle references? We could connect to existing active inference literature. Let's do it. Mathematical formalism, full spectrum. So the plan mode in Cursor, which some or most, but not all of the models have, but Opus 4.5 does, engages in a preliminary round of context, iteration, and refinement tool use internally, and will then write a plan, which is then sequentially with some very interestingly controlled kind of stubbornness. So here's what the plan looks like. We're going to transform project into a rigorous research monograph on containment theory, an alternative to set theory based on G. Spencer Brown's laws of form. Let's just see if this top level point is like already way off the map. We'll let it finish writing it. Oh. Containment theory replaces set membership with spatial containment. Okay? Let's let it cook while we search. Little pre-dinner reading. Okay. Gabriel in the chat and this distinction network. So that was without containment theory summaries in without containment theory paper. So here we finished the 157. 71 new papers were downloaded. Now those are going to get iteratively processed by Olama with a Olama gradient local LLM call. Yi 1997 variational. Let's just look at the PDF. Yi variational. So this is going to start making a summary of this 1997 paper. So you can imagine that with a more powerful compute, which might be done one or a few times at a few different lengths or formats with all the PDFs, but that's done once per paper. So that is going to be plugging away. It's not going to come into use probably in this stream because only a few will come into play. We'll see. Maybe we'll just let it run and we'll get like 10 summaries. Then we could ask, okay, with these 10 new specific papers, add to the paper to make it specifically in relation to this citation, that one. Okay, so while we're thinking about this kind of meta review literature summarization paradigm, the containment theory plan is underway. So here within project, so here's the agent implementing that plan. So it started by, this is all heavily signposted in the documentation and the cursor rules and everything. So the config file of within the project was changed to containment theory, boundary logic as alternative foundation to set theory. Name, I'm going to just do stream. And I'll put real email. All right. Some tests. Config.yaml. The full. So here's configurable title. Here it'll just be example author information, publication, keywords, metadata, and which languages we want to translate the abstract to in that language step. Then in the SRC folder, it next implemented a 524 line code, boundary logic forms. This module implements the fundamental structures of G. Spencer Brown's Laws of Form, 1969, providing a computational foundation for boundary logic as an alternative to traditional set-theoretic foundation. The primary distinction, or mark, creates inside-outside relationships, replacing set membership with spatial containment. Possibly like a sort of discretization topology as in duality with a continuous information geometry. Key concepts. Form a recursive structure of nested boundaries. Very relevant. Mark, the primary distinction, creating inside-outside. Geometry, the bubbles trilogy by Sloterdijk. Of course, synergetics, tetrahedral as minimal space enclosing system, isotropic vector matrix. Void, empty space, the absence of distinction. Cross, the mark state, true. So that's kind of intra-activity, a fundamental relationality, unity and duality, interactionism. And to what extent this is true. Someone more specifically can tie to the literature, or we could have primed with the PDFs of these textbooks and papers specifically. So let's look up, let's start another literature search. Run literature search PDF download. 30 papers, G. Spencer Brown. So then this is going to continue, but then you can imagine that in, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes, we will be able to say, okay, update the containment methods in light of the formalisms exactly like in these papers, and make sure you cite them. Okay, so we'll quit that process and just focus on the focus on just the search for G. Spencer Brown. So that's the only literature search thread. Now we have still the SRC methods getting written by the Opus 4.5 agents in the project of pivoting project folder to be about this research question. So, meanwhile, just to get some information, so this one, this is containment lit. This one, manuscript end to end. /run, run the full pipeline. So this is going to first erase the output directories in the project level and at the repo level. Set up the environment and check all the needed package dependencies at the infrastructure and at the project level. First, run the infrastructure test suite. This is just to get early warning before getting at all into the package, making sure that all these like 1600 tests at the repo level are very strong. Now we're going into the test suite. Now the test suite failed because it didn't hit 70% coverage. That's another sort of early warning flag just to exit, so that there's end-to-end viability. I'm sure there are, as in this moment, excursions from that end-to-end, but it's kind of like stopping breathing. Seems good to keep it on the rails, and then if you want to change some aspect or remove some aspect, that can be easily done. But there's something nice about that run halting at ordering, which is configurable for that one option. But you can run other options, like if you don't want to render the manuscript, if you just want to literature search, then the fact that the manuscript won't render doesn't halt the literature search, download, summarization. Still, we have the agent plugging away on the code. We can look at the plan and basically see if the next strategy. Okay, so first the source module. So that's what's happening. Diagrams.py is happening. Looks like that was not included in the original plan, but I guess, hey, plans change. We'll see after this diagrams finishes. Maybe that will finish this first section on the source modules, and then there will be these rewrites of the manuscript sections. Okay. There was the thought there. Quote thought. Good progress. Now I need to update the init.py, then create the test suite. Let me continue. So completing the test suite, confirming the functionality of the SRC that just happened, will raise our test coverage to 70% in a few minutes. So we will get past this threshold. So that will be a good pace. Meanwhile, let's check back in containment. All right, so let's look at a containment theory summary. Okay. Let's see. There could have been citations in different fields that do or don't have primary relevance to what we're studying here. Or what are we studying here? But let's see. All right, we have Expected performance of the Atlas experiment. The Atlas detector. Wow. How relevant. How cool. Many author paper. Tidal instability. Coupling P modes and G modes within neutron stars. On GW 170817. Okay. B particle, mu, decay. High energy neutrinos. Not sure if these are the papers that we are looking for, but again, it's a example of what can be curated in this repo by anyone who would like to explore. Meanwhile, let us remember that we have 54% with 320. Let's run it again. So we have 54%, 320. I'm going to run the whole pipeline. So as we made no changes to infrastructure, 54, 320. We will expect homeostatically that the infrastructure 1600 tests fully pass. And some of the slower ones could be skipped. Some of the LLM methods are skipped because they're long generation, or maybe somebody doesn't even want to use the local LLM methods at all, which are not required for the manuscript being generated. But those passed. So now we move into the... Okay. Then right off the bat, we hit now the test errors within the package. So just to kind of keep things on the rails, I'm going to resync. Here are the current test results of the project. Replan it. Okay. So now the plan is being updated. It's about PyTest. So some files are going to be updated at these specific planned locations. Then we will get to the manuscript getting written. Oh, J1, J2. That's so funny. Here, let's do a little J1, J2 lore. Those are two of the lineages that need each other, as it were, of the Pogonomyrmex Southwest U.S. species concept that I did my PhD dissertation in this region. So it's just funny because it was the J1 and J2 population. So let's see what J1 and J2 do here. Opus 4.5. Improving the intra-package test suite. Then once that happens, we will get through that next step of running the manuscript end to end. because we kind of don't even want to look at the manuscript if we don't even have the tests functional. And once we do this initial pivot, which is still in progress, then we'll be kind of switched over all the way to this other vector. But now we have these small edits, which go relatively fast in phase one. Updating the source files. Now, updating the imports. Definitely a fun way to see a lot of sample size and learn a lot about coding in Python. Seeing it all, even when it's not 100%, but it is vast and accurate in many ways. Not always in the only way or in the specific way unspecified, but some of these coding practices are really interesting to see, just flexible at this level, and with Opus and a lot of other models right now. Okay. All right. Back to the agenda while we give it a little time. Just, give it like 20, 30 minutes. We've only given it a few. All right, so we ran run.sh, talked about these two kind of branches of the project level, test orchestration, analysis, rendering, and then on the literature search branch, the tools to do research summarization, which then we can drag in and you can say, okay, now take this file into account when writing this manuscript, which is going to be one of our next steps. Project from scratch, the topic was brought up to do this containment theory topic, and we're able to touch upon in this direct show and or tell strategy with live stream interactivity a lot of these different aspects of meta science or just science itself, like structure and function, and different ways to think about the science ecosystem as different kinds of organizing processes with different information flows, taking a systems view, also a first-person view as a navigator, epistemic forger in that space, and just modernity and it all. Motivating this is the ability to increase the quality and quantity and the reproducibility and integrity of scientific work, and bridge and upskill and up niche and leave it better than we started with respect to open science and all that. There's this two-layer architecture where infrastructure, literature, docs, tests, scripts, and run.sh all apply to this infrastructural kind of oven glove handler level. And then project is intended to be this standalone. We'll just say, now just get to focusing on the manuscript, updating, can do code later. Keeping in mind using the very most relevant specific citations of. So here's the project kind of reaching outside of its own folder and then using cursor like rag to softly access the information geometry of summaries. Or there could be another rag call or an olama call to this folder. Then use the bibliographic information and bibliographic format of the enforced by and acted upon by the infrastructure methods within the output, or within the project folder manuscript. So then we'll have our library PDF downloaded papers, other documents, summarized however we want to LLM summarize them, done by a community for thousands of papers, or done by one person for even thousands of papers, as it's going through dozens just on this laptop here. Within a end-to-end versionability setting, so now we're going to run the full pipeline. We expect to have the infrastructure tests pass, and then the package tests fail. Comprehensively fix all project scale methods and tests. Documentation as will pass. 70% coverage. We expect the infrastructure 1600 to proceed. We expect to surface some of the errors from the SRC, project SRC, in the coming few seconds. There we go. 2 errors. Make sure that everything is synced. Now, with these 2 agents vectors, which can kind of co-coordinate through the synced vector embedding of cursor, in kind of coming up for air, I think, either at the prompt user interface level or in between these smaller steps. Now we have the tests, which we want to get to 70%, so then we can get to the manuscript rendering and the analysis and surface the next level of errors. Now we're already writing the paper. So, building on G. Spencer Brown's Laws of Form, 1969, we develop a complete computational framework for boundary logic that demonstrates its equivalence to Boolean algebra while offering distinct advantage in parsimony, geometric intuition, and handling of self-reference. This work establishes containment theory as a viable alternative foundation for discrete mathematics with complete computational verification of its theoretical claims and open source implementation for further investigation. So, that sounds like something that would require that kind of theorem-proving environment. We will find out whether that check written by the abstract is going to be upheld by the analysis. But we're chugging away, or we could tone back whether it's a formal proof and just feed in, say, we want these 7 papers to be included in a more of a literature meta-analysis paper. Or maybe we'll see what this literature review document looks like. Meanwhile, we have the fixing of test errors. Oop. Let's just more generally run the literature summarization step, just because we're not using the LLM otherwise. Generate summaries for download PDFs. So first, that's going to try to re-download missing PDFs. We have 922 papers, 167 need download, 583 need summaries. So we'll just let that run. We have now it's iteratively running and re-ingesting the project level test suite, which is going to give it a few rounds of being able to feed in the errors in the failing tests. So we can also peep that button and look in. Sometimes you can't see it because of the piping command, but we can see it kind of ticking away here. So that's within this cursor infinity window. Here it's testing the algebra complexity. Then over on this one, we still have the references. Here are the, wow, Kaufman, C.S. Peirce. This is awesome. Say, excellent. Ensure that one of the supplemental sections is a comprehensive, vast, formal, concise representation and grounding in with the history of North American pragmatism and neo-materialisms. Just to sort of mix it up. So we'll see, will it finish SO2, then accept this queued message? Or will it finish a series more methods and then okay? We'll just send that one now just so we kind of get through to it. Okay, test suite is ongoing. Run SH again, run full pipeline. Or we could just do run SH to run project tests. Okay. So I'm going to stop this one just to give it a re-context. Comprehensively fix all the project tests. Okay, hope I can finish this in the next few minutes. Let's just review the okay, we'll look at that for sure. So we have project tests, developing, plan in progress. Here is the philosophical so introduction, G. Spencer Brown, distinction, structure, supplement 1 is like a technical code. Supplement 2 is axiom verification. So this can be pure equation play with vast painting. That's the kind of recipes that you may or may not be able to come through on. And or can be injected or confirmed equivalent to formal theorem proving and or numerical simulation steps in the SRC of the project. Then we have this new, so this is the, okay, C.S. Peirce developed existential graphs, a diagrammatic logic that anticipates Spencer Brown's calculus in fundamental ways. The connection is not merely superficial, but structural. Very cool. Very knowledge graph pilled. Very computational semantics. William James, John Dewey. To exist is to be in a situation, which is, in the technical direction, the kind of minimum system, start with universe, two eyes open approach of synergetics. It's Dean's sort of zoom in, zoom out. It, on the performative side, is more like situationism or all of these other kind of math art or art related aesthetics. Alfred North, Whitehead, The Category of the Ultimate, Karen Barad. I know from the paper of Mao and Ali that Barad's agential realism is related. Virtual and the Actual, Deleuze. Onto Power, Core Commitments, so it's very long. Latour, so even to the limited Donna Haraway, even knowing this in a limited capacity, that seems to be Richard Rorty. A lot of crossover there. All right. So we have documentation getting updated at the level of the project to reorient it towards being stably for this containment theory approach. Here we have still the thinking happening with the test. We'll just say, get going. But that part could range from, this is sort of now the lower bar, is that kind of thinking that was just being quote shown, or quote thinking that was being shown. And that could include MCP or other orchestrated calls to doing more specific theorem proving and methods. So ensure all project methods and tests are. This is going to be a little bit of these sometimes can interfere with each other's work with fixing different tests, but we'll just run these two because they'll probably be staggered in how they run tests. So as long as we keep refreshing the context, we should be good there. And just let us check how many run project tests. So that's what it's running, that in this agentic tab. All right, so 16 failed, and we will not move forward until those. We could also just ask, is there a way to accept failing tests and still proceed? So now, targeting test failure by test failure. We're in the most proximal semantic context to the bibliography and the claims in the manuscript for the SRC. So that's the sort of standalone dual channel semantics, is the formal and the prose methods, as well as a secondary documentation layer to connect any needed dots, like just sort of lab materials, to make an integrated unity and coherent functionality at the project level, the briefcase level. And then we're in the document factory with the infrastructural layer. And so partially just to maintain that end-to-end functionality, whatever pattern that name is, a high threshold is kept for the tests, just so that there's minimal drift away into like a non-functional regime, which might come through a valley into a new zone of improved functionality. but then that should be branched and then brought back in modularly. So on this stream, we may only in the next few minutes get to that PDF rendering, but suffice to say that I can let it run while I continue doing the rest of work and play and arts and crafts today, and just upload the PDF, which would go to the outputs PDF folder. And Gabriel export. I hope that this gives some idea of what the system can do for everyone. So I appreciate the suggestion. We have abstract, the introduction that we looked at, the methods, theorems, experimental, computational, kind of irreducible complexity, Reuliadian, acknowledgements, appendix. Yeah, I would love to see the output too. I want to stay a few minutes just to get there. Appendix, symbol glossary, and that can be checked between the names of the variables in the SRC and then within and across manuscript sections. References is a placeholder for the bib. Yeah, wow, thought for 4 minutes and 40. Okay, so wow. Okay, let's run it again and see how many failing tests. 16, 488. Run project tests. This is the most recent test run. Fix everything given the current state. Yeah. Just resync it. Let the other one also continue to run, but let this one do a little plan. Actually, stop that one. Just so that we're down to just a few failed, 6. So finish these 6 tests. But that might take a minute to skip through. So meanwhile, comprehensively review all the manuscript sections. It is making maximal, compliant, real use of all relevant citations from literature, just let it run. We'll just say mark them and remove the block for now. We will fix later. Just so that we get to the manuscripts. Okay, so now we have wow. Looking at the 6 remaining failures, they all relate to a single issue, the excluded middle. How deep? Okay, adding the decorators so that we can proceed hopefully through those tests. Now comprehensively proceed to one by one fix and confirm all those tests. So now that's going to fix the 6. So that might fix these 6. Once these, okay, now we will do run.sh. We'll just run the full pipeline and just hope that this is going to work. Meanwhile, open up the cursor. Okay, it's not going to show us until it finishes. So here we have, close that. Here was from that background process of getting the PDFs. Looks like we didn't get any PDFs, but it's about to, oh, maybe. But then it's about to enter into the summarization phase of these 167. All right. Meanwhile, all right, here we go. So now we got further in. So now we're generating the slides. So now we're in project, output, PDF. Okay. So now it's, here are the slides. Now here's introduction. So this is the auto-generated slides. Notation. Here's the experimental results. TOC text. Here's methodology slides. Then PDF, paper. Boom. So, red letter, scarlet letter, text, font play, rubrication. Document structure. There's a reference error, but these get flagged. So you can fix. And then also the iterative feedback is, okay, well, equation crossing is not proper. There's some visualizations, some tables. There's the citations. So, very cool. End of stream. I'm going to end it there. I hope people enjoy and find it well. Till next time.